Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is a drama from Denmark, Danish language English subs, released in the year 2024, directed by Gustav Muller, and this film is called Sons. So Sons is about a woman, a correctional officer who works at this prison in the minimum security wing. So the prisoners aren't as violent. It's a very harmonious sort of atmosphere that they've all created. The prisoners like the correctional officer and vice versa. And so it's a peaceful existence that she's created, but that existence is about to be shattered upon the arrival of a violent criminal who is transported to the maximum security wing. So this violent criminal is connected to this woman's past. That really brings back memories that are very hurtful, so she gets a lot of anger. So she wants to be transported to the maximum security wing so she'd be closer to this prisoner to exercise a few demons and hopefully make her feel better about the situation. But unfortunately, she's getting to the point of no return. So what that point is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Sons. Yet again, this is another movie that no one ever talks about. It's definitely gone under the radar, but the reason why I wanted to check this movie out is because Gustav Muller created another movie called The Guilty that has since been remade by the United States. The Guilty was a movie about an emergency call operator who receives a call for help by this woman, and the situation becomes very complex and it goes from bad to worse for everyone involved. And so if you want my thoughts in more detail, please go and check that review out. And so I thought that was a fascinating film, but at the same time, a movie that had slight issues. And so coming into Sons, I thought maybe this was a movie that was going to capitalise upon those individual sort of errors and hopefully make a better experience. And so when I saw the trailer, I thought, all right, well, this looks interesting. I'm a massive fan of Scandinavian cinema, as you guys know. But the fact that no one ever talks about it, again, is very disappointing. A lot of these foreign films just don't get the attention that mainstream Hollywood get. And so that's a shame, but that's something that I've become accustomed to. And so Sons, I was hoping that this is a movie that was going to excite me to actually recommend it to everybody out there. And after finally watching this film, I will say that although it is a fascinating film, once again, it does pose the same problems that The Guilty had. And so that's just, these are problems that I'll go into a little bit later, but what I liked about Sons is that it's a fascinating character study about trauma and about the act of vengeance and how in reality it's not therapeutic, it's not cathartic, it's not going to make you feel better. And so acting out that sense of vengeance is creating a monster within yourself. And so this main character, a lovely individual, very well acted. I thought she was very likeable. The inmates really respected her in this minimum security wing, but you know that something's a little bit off. Is that her past, she's had a trauma, but what that trauma is, you're not entirely sure. But when this violent criminal is thrown into the maximum security wing, there are clues to the past that are thrown in that evolve the situation into a snowball effect. And so I thought it was fascinating. The overall chemistry between this correctional officer and the violent criminal, I thought was very gut-wrenching. It was very heartbreaking. It's a very depressing film. And what I liked about this movie is that it's showing vengeance for what it is. It's a very realistic movie, and that's something that The Guilty had. This is a movie without theatrics. It's not that therapeutic violence. It's not the exaggeration that you get in a lot of revenge films. This is a movie that's really throwing vengeance out there and having a look at it under the microscope and showing that you can become a person you don't want to be. And this is what trauma can do. It can create a demon inside you that in order to exercise that demon, you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do. And so I thought the overall effect that this main character had, she was completely torn up about it. And the further she goes into this quest of vengeance, the more she starts to lose herself. And so it does give a very depressing sort of vibe, and it throws it out there in a very realistic sense. So it's almost like a fly on the wall. You're actually watching an event in someone's life instead of actually watching a genuine sort of theatrical film. And so the overall acting from everyone involved was fantastic. And so psychologically, I thought it was a devastating movie, which is very similar to The Guilty. And so although these two movies are completely different, it's still a psychological study that's putting the viewer in a very uncomfortable position. So there are some moments that I thought were quite haunting, and the end of the movie I thought really summed up what the whole film was trying to do. As I said, make it as vengeance is an evil in itself. It's not going to make you feel any better, and it's not going to change how things have gone and how things are going to go in the future. It's just going to get worse. And so the overall cinematography, very bleak and unforgiving. It's very devoid of colours. It's not a vibrant film whatsoever, so it feels like a very depressing atmosphere, and it feels like an atmosphere inside a prison. I've never been to prison, but it actually made me feel like this is a place that I don't want to be. And so that's exactly what Gustav Muller was trying to achieve, and that's exactly what he does. This is a movie that could have been a play, because it, as I said, doesn't have really a lot of theatrics. It doesn't have a lot of characters that are thrown into the film. So once again, the emphasis is on the performances, and the script I thought was fantastic. The Guilty had a really good script, and this movie has a really good script as well that creates characters that you can actually relate to. And for a film like this to work in a realistic sense, you need that relatability. You need to feel that these are real people, and that's exactly what I felt, especially this main character. I thought There were moments that I felt really, really sorry for her, and I just didn't want her to go down that road, but I can understand why she was going down that road. Is because, all right, this person has done something to her in the past that has caused that sense of vengeance and anger, but is controlling that anger. That's a lot more easier said than done. So that was fascinating. But unfortunately, the reason why I didn't love this movie is because it felt like an episode of a TV show. It felt like a made-for-TV movie, and that's something that I have a criticism of The Guilty, and that's ultimately a criticism of this director. He doesn't have theatrics. He doesn't have a movie that you can re-watch. It's a movie that you watch once, you say to yourself, that was interesting, but that is where it stops. And so the lack of theatrics does prevent this movie from being memorable. Yes, it's a film about, as I said, the power of vengeance and how devastating it can be, but there are other movies that have done it in a similar way, and there are other movies that have done it in a very exaggerated way. And so you kind of think to yourself, this is a movie that's definitely going to get lost within the very tired subgenre of vengeance. And the reason why it becomes lost is because it just doesn't have that sense of elevation. The movie just stays on a very flat line from start to finish. Not a lot happens. It's basically getting into the mindset of this main character, but that's it. And so for a lot of vengeance films out there, you really have to make a shadow of your own, but this movie really fails to do that. It actually doesn't spread its wings and make it a film that I would say definitely go out there and see. If you've got nothing better to watch, it's a movie that, as I said, will make you think about your own life and how violence can play a devastating effect in a negative way. And so that was all very interesting, but as I said, it's that lack of theatrics, it's the lack of elevation, it just doesn't have you on the edge of your seat, and it just goes around and around in circles. It just doesn't really have a formulaic sort of story that can captivate you from start to finish. Yes, it's interesting, but as I said, it stays at interesting. And so that was a criticism of Sons, which is unfortunately the criticism I had of The Guilty, and as a result of that, I'm going to give this film 3 stars. Still go out there and see it, especially if you're a fan of foreign cinema. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.